Kia ora, welcome to the Guerin Report. Thanks for taking time out of your Monday night to join us. An incredible weekend for racing anywhere in the world, but with that real Kiwi flavour as the Valkyrie at the Valley, Via Sistina, smashed them in the Cox Plate with a Kiwi on board and a Kiwi running the business from behind the scenes. Chris Waller, after a remarkable week, joins us tonight. We're going to talk to him for the second part of our exclusive interview about what's changed for him in trading and who he thinks the best jockeys he deals with are, and more updates coming up about horses like Alabama Lass. Will she go to the 1,000 Guineas? We have information for you on that, and the New Zealanders who are heading to the Melbourne Cup, or at least hoping to. But for all of the remarkable feats on racetracks around Australasia on the weekend, this is the one we will remember for the ages. Via Sistina out of Ireland in the Yulong colours, destroying them. Track record winning margin, and of course, J-Max 100th Group 1. The question now, will she go to the Melbourne Cup? She is the favourite, and I don't think they'll be making their decision in the next day or two. Let's not forget, when Very Elegant, out of the Cox Plate, went to the Melbourne Cup, they didn't decide to the Saturday, Derby Day, which is coming up this week. That may well be the case again. The next payments were due today, on Monday. I think they'll pay up to give themselves the option. And of course, Yulong and Mr. Zhang, they love a trophy. They love a trophy mare. Maybe that might be enough to convince Chris Waller to take her there and try the Very Elegant. Talking about Waller, so many people so proud of what him and James are able to achieve. We interviewed James about 8 weeks ago when this series started. This is the second part of our interview with Chris. He was very frank and very honest with us. Sit back and enjoy as we ask one of the great Kiwi sports coaches what he's changed since he left here about his training regime in the last 20 years.
I think the first 5 or 10 years when you're training, you're constantly thinking about people that have taught you, what other people are doing, experimenting. And when you're a more mature trainer, I think it's like anything in life, whether it be coaching a rugby team or coaching a horse or a team of horses or a team of staff in a business scene. You get confidence and you remember what works, you remember what doesn't work, you remember what risks you can take and when it's time to experiment new methods. So I think this confidence is the key. And yeah, over the last 20 odd years, the confidence has grown, and you know, well, I did that to win this race. This horse is similar to where that horse was 6 months ago. And when you're dealing with young horses so we're very soft on our 2-year-olds, and you'll get concerned midway through a 2-year-old season. You see, in particular in Sydney, like Gay Waterhouse or Peter Snowden or Godolphin winning these big 2-year-old races, but we haven't even unleashed, let alone trialled our horses yet. So we've got to sit, wait for these horses. Back into the 2-year-old season, we start to become a bit stronger, and then you see everything starting to line up. And then the start of the 3-year-old season, which is the spring, which is where we're at now, you're hoping that everything you've done right by looking after those horses come and reward you.
A word I hear a lot more talking to great trainers these days than I did 20 years ago is recovery. There seems to be a far greater emphasis on what happens after the race and those 3 or 4 days after the race.
Yeah, no different to a sporting team from what I understand, and I've been fortunate enough to speak to some good coaches from around the world. You need to train hard, you need to rest and obviously recover, and you need a good balance of everything. Mental wellness is a big thing for people and for horses, and keeping that horse or player interested in their job is important. So I think the old saying is less is more is probably true to any sporting team. You need to know when you need to put in the hard yards, but you need to know when to back off and reward as well. So with horses, they've got a pretty good life. They don't get on social media. I think that's a big plus. They don't.
Do you get on social media?
No, I don't.
Good man.
No, we've got an active social media account. We put information out there. I never read one comment, and I'm proud of it. And I feel for those that get trolled, or people that put too much emphasis in it, because...
Don't you think to yourself, though, they don't have to read it if they don't want to? You don't read it? But maybe you're a different generation?
Yeah, for sure. I know when I've had a bad day. I know when things aren't going good. I know when I've had a good day. I don't need people to tell me. But I think you've got to keep focused and not worry about the background noise, whether it's social media or media. You've got to respect people are doing their jobs in the media, so it's not always going to be good headlines. Getting back to where we're at, I think just being focused and concentrating on the job, not swaying too much. Respect that the horse is an animal, they eat well, they drink well, and their coats tell you a lot. As they say, if the horse looks good on the outside, it means they're good on the inside. So at the right time of the year, you know when they need to be starting to bloom, and you know coming into winter when their coat looks a bit off, that's just their coat. Seasonal, don't be worried about that. But coming into the spring, you want to see a good shine on their coat coming about now.
You raise a really interesting question. It's going to sound a bit from left field. Do you think horses have personalities? And if they do, like humans, don't they get out of bed some days and not feel like going to work? And doesn't that make it difficult for the speed mappers or the punters who want them to race the same every week? If horses have personalities, and I'm interested in your views on that, doesn't it give us that 10% where things can always go wrong? And shouldn't punters be more realistic about that?
Yeah, I guess our job is to make sure that this same horse is there every day. And we're fortunate we use the best jockeys in the world. They make race day look pretty good. Their hands, their feel, their body clocks, how they work, timing, how they can feel in their hands what a horse has got left. A horse might naturally want to be a keen horse. Some of them are best let roll half a stride quicker.
Is that breeding or is that personality? What makes some horses different from others?
It's personality for sure. Yeah, a lot of personalities on a racetrack. Yeah, and those barriers. It could be how long they're standing in the stalls. It could be how they paraded. It could be what happened in the morning before they went to the races. So it's all about keeping them calm. It's often why we'll do exhibition gallops. It's not to get extra work into them. It's to give them a race day experience. They'll sweat up, start of the preparation, be no different to a footballer. Missing a kick or missing a pass or not catching a pass it happens at the start of the season because they're just not quite relaxed. But halfway through the season, things just flow. Getting to the end of the season, grand final is probably another art again. Not overtraining, not overcomplicating. And for a horse, it's the same. We don't want to get a horse to get to Everest Day or Golden Eagle Day or Melbourne Cup Day knowing that it's any different to where it was in the middle of the preparation. So getting back to personality, you've got to read that personality, you've got to respect it, you can't change it. They're a strong-willed animal, and if you fire them up, you'll never change them. So softly's probably the key. You
were once a battling trainer. When you look back on how you trained then, and you mentioned not taking in so much outside noise these days, but there'll be some battling trainers watching this and they see your horses in the parade ring and they go, wow, they look great. How come my horses don't look like that? Yeah. What would be the advice or what would be the thing you've learned in the last 20 years that, and I'm not being disrespectful to anybody, but battling trainers will make that you now no longer try to make, which someone watching this could take and think that might help me train this horse to be a winner?
I think just being consistent and develop your own technique would be first and foremost. And that takes time. You need numbers, because if you've only got 10 horses to train, like, it's so hard to work out what works, what doesn't work. 20 horses, not as bad. 40 horses, better again. When you've got like 200 horses in training across Australia, 240, you can experiment a little bit, subtle changes. You can experience good and bad runs.
Is it easier, for example, for you to put one in the paddock and say, let's wait 6 months, than it is for the bloke with 10, because that's 6 months without income for him?
Yeah, it is for sure. And in the confidence of your investors or the owners is important as well too. So I might have a horse that's just won a trial by 2 lengths, and it's going towards a $100,000 race in 10 days' time, and I'll just say to the owner, look, the horse is not ready. It needs to go out. I can say it, but the younger trainers can't say that.
Well, they can get a horse taken off them too.
Yeah, my word. Yeah, so it's a juggling act in those early days. But getting back to what you asked, advice is, do things properly. Be consistent. Be prepared to get frustrated. You might be the hardest working trainer, you might have the best team, you might have the horses looking fantastic, but if that horse is not good enough, it doesn't matter how good it looks, how well you've trained it. If the horse's ability isn't there, you can't improve it. And it took me a while to learn that. The first Group 1 winner I had, which was Triple Honour, about 2008, it gave me that confidence to know I haven't changed anything with this horse. The horse is good enough. A couple of starts before he got beaten a nose in a Group 1, I thought, oh, it's never going to happen. Dead set nose, and I was so frustrated. 4 weeks later, he won a Group 1 race, but it didn't change anything. But the horse is good enough, not just to win a Group 1 race, but he ran second, beaten a nose the one before. They're just at a different level of animal. And again, with 240 horses, that animal's coming through a lot quicker. If you're training 10 horses, that animal is 10 years away.
The colt turning into stallion business has become a huge part of Australian racing, as it has in other parts of the world. Does it mean now that winning the Everest at 20 million with the gelding isn't as important to your business model as winning the Coolmore down the straight at Flemington, or in fact the Slipper with a colt?
It's a big deal, the Everest. It's the most talked about race in Australia now. Obviously the Melbourne Cup will never be replaced, but in Sydney, New South Wales, everybody wants to know about the Everest, wants to be at the Everest. Younger generation are flocking to the Everest. It's a sellout. So it's a big deal. In terms of the race, it's the race every owner wants to win.
What about that stallion making part of the business? I mean, when you get those good, for example, those good Coolmore colt syndicates, and you know what you know what they're trying to do. How important is it to get that right when the opportunity presents itself, which it doesn't for lots of horses, e.g. Home Affairs, winning the Coolmore down the straight, Shinzo winning the Slipper here. How important is that? Because those people are investing a lot of money.
Yeah, it's very important, but again, you can't change it. You can't make it happen. So you've got to try and do your part to make sure that that part of the recipe's there. They're well prepared, they're in the right races, they've got the right jockeys, and you're not overcomplicating things. But again, doesn't matter how much the horse cost, who owns the horse, you can only do what you can, and that's prepare well, and if the horse is good enough, it'll deliver. So yeah, the pressure's on, but the pressure's on for a person that's just spent $20,000 on a share, and they probably should have been spending it on the mortgage of the house or something like that. The pressure's always on with something.
You mentioned getting those horses. You have to go to the sales to get a lot of them. You have a very thorough team. I've been incredibly impressed by how thorough the process is. With the sales being so big and the money being so big, is there still room for Chris Waller or Guy or Charlie to have gut instinct? I like the way that looks. We might buy that, even though it's not on the books or you haven't got an owner for it? Or do you have to stick to the process? Oh,
we've got to stick to the process, and that is you've got to have an owner for the horse. I want to concentrate on training horses. I don't want to concentrate on who I owe money to. And if you owe money to those sales companies or you're behind in your payments. That's the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning, when you should be thinking about training or coaching. So I think there's a trap there for young players, is overcommitting and taking your eye off the ball for training. So our process is, if we think we can sell the horse and we think we can get a return from that horse, we'll buy it. But if we can't sell the horse, or we don't think we can get a return from that horse, we'll put our hands up and say we can't do it.
I know you're a student of the game and you appreciate the history of the game. Away from the horses you have trained, if you could train any horse in the history of racing, who would you have liked to have had under your care?
Oh, yeah, it's a tough question. Gee, I'm pretty happy with what I've had. You've got me. Look, when I was growing up...
What have you watched, what have you seen where you've gone, oh? Like, there's a couple of wins I've seen where I've gone, oh.
Yeah, I guess what they did with Horlicks, going from New Zealand, doing well here, she won a Japan Cup. Oh, that was a big deal.
World record time.
There you go.
2:22 for 2400.
Like, that was a big deal, And I was only young, but I thought at the time, well, that's something that's just probably never going to be achieved, or very hard to achieve. So just little things like that. I'm very much in awe. I love watching good trainers around the world. I love watching good coaches perform and how they deal with teams and how they bring teams through, and over the next 2 to 3 years they grow them and what can be achieved. Like, I get a kick out of that.
Talk about other trainers. If you went to the sales, you could buy any horse you wanted at any sale in the world, but you or Charlie and your team can't train it. Who would you give it to?
In Australia?
No, your
Anywhere
horse.
in the world.
You buy anything you want, Chris.
Look, I've spent a lot of time with Aidan O'Brien, and we stay in contact regularly. He's just a mastermind. He's a guru. He's a deep thinker. He's used to dealing with great horses, and he's still one of us as well. He's a family man. He's got respect for everybody. He's got respect for all horses. I'd say it'd be Aidan.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you for one jockey because you've had everybody ride big winners for you. I'll give you 3.
3 jockeys.
Who are the 3 best jockeys you've seen in the flesh, of the modern era, of the ones that you know? The
3.
ins and outs of 3.
If you give me 10.
I'll tell you what, 3. I was only going to give you 1 about a week ago, but we've matured to 3.
I think James McDonald will become one of, if not the greatest. He is still so young, and what he's achieved in such a short time, I think would be second to none for the same. He is likely to go to number 1. I'm going to leave him out of the top 3 though.
Oh.
Yeah.
This will go down well when J-Mac watches.
No, because I've just told him he's going to be number 1. He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
He'll survive.
He is a superstar, and he's got an amazing gift with horses, and it's a privilege to work with him. And I'm seeing him mature. He's probably seeing me mature as well. Other jockeys, look, I've been so lucky to work with some of the greatest. So I'm going to tell you about horses, the jockeys I've worked with. So, look, Jimmy Cassidy was a marvel. He was the jockey that inspired me winning on Kiwi. Like, he planted the seed. So it's not just about how many winners they ride or what they can do on a horse. It's where they're at. And then I think, I know, and I get emotional speaking about it, that's why I was thinking. But he won his 100th Group 1 winner on Zooster. Like, that was right in the twilight of his career. And you'd use him midweek at Canterbury or the last race at Rose Hill, and you just needed something special. And he'll just come out and he'll roll the sleeves up, and I'll say, Jimmy, we need this horse to win. He'll say, no worries, leave it to Pumper. And sure enough, he'll do something brilliant. Like, that was a gift. And there's a few other stories like that. Joe Moreira, he's a superstar, a dead set superstar. The horses love him. The stable loves him because he's hair riding track work, he's talking, he's helping others. And what he can do on a horse would be close to second to none. Hugh Bowman, for what he did on Winx, like the pressure, not how well he rode her, but the pressure. So I'm not talking about success, despite him being one of the greatest in the world, the pressure he dealt with. I don't know if there's any other jockeys that could have done it.
It's a pretty good 3.
Yeah, have we got to 3?
You got 3. You're going to stop you now because it could be 10. Because I know Ryan Moore's name could pop into this conversation.
I've missed Darren Beadman. Darren Beadman, he's got to be in the top 3.
He won't mind. He's going okay.
No, he was very important to me.
So who are you going to drop out if you're putting Beadman in?
Well, it's a photo. It's a dead heat.
You ever get a bracket pick?
And then you got your Glenn Bosses, your Damien Olivers, and Frankie Dettori's ridden for us. I'm very privileged to work with some amazing horsemen, and that's just yeah.
I asked you on stage at the New Zealand Awards 5 or 6 years ago how it felt to be in the conversation with TJ and Bart, and you seemed embarrassed at the time.
Still there.
Does it sit more comfortably now? But you've won 14 Sydney Premierships, I think, or 14 Bart Cummings medals. At some stage, I suppose you've got to admit you're in the conversation with them.
Yeah, I don't think I need to be, really. Yeah, different generations. And
but similar bodies of work.
Maybe. I think that's for other people to talk about.
Oh, I'm talking about it now. Does it embarrass you to think that?
It does.
Why? Why? You can't deny what you've done. So is it because Bart was so iconic growing up?
Yeah, it could be more than just winning races as well. Like, I don't know them as people, apart from I got to meet Mr. Cummings, Bart, fairly well, fairly closely. And Mr. Smith, Tommy, I think I might have shaken hands with him once, but never got into a conversation with him, I used to be very shy, and I'd almost walk the other way when I'd be at the track at Randwick when I was a strapper, and because I was in awe of them. So,
but surely you're aware that some people watching this right now feel the same about you.
Well, don't feel that about me, and I feel like I can pass things on to people. Maybe.
I'm sure if I had this conversation with Bart 20 years ago, he didn't want people feeling that way about him.
Yeah, people are probably a bit more open now, and we're more accessible, and
we'll see.
But
I've seen you on racetracks. I've seen the effect when a bloke wanted a selfie and poured his own coffee down his arm, trying to get a selfie with you, and it's rock star stuff. It's embarrassing. I know it's still true. It doesn't make it any less true.
I'm in a privileged position, simple as that. We've got great horses, great team behind me, and there's a long way to go yet.
CW Racing 2024 looks pretty darn good. You've got a very strong arsenal this spring. What do you want CW Racing 2030 to look like?
2030.
6 years?
6 years.
What would you like to add to it, take away from it? Would you like less horses, more people? But what's the plan?
Yeah, better life-work balance would be better. I don't learn though. Steph's great for me. She tells me now and then. This week I've been to dinners, I've been to lunches, I've done interviews, and overcommitted. I've just got to learn to obviously plan my life a little bit better, and I've got to, I'm not saying we're not doing interviews, but
you can stop after this.
Yeah, this is the last one today.
Good.
But yeah, so just the horses, not bigger, and getting smaller possibly. We're keen to get our own farm up and going where I can just train the horses a little bit differently and have a more longevity, and perhaps get them to their goals quicker, keep them in training longer, because we're seeing carnivals being joined now. Sydney didn't really have a spring carnival up until grand final day, which is the first Saturday in October. We'd have 5 or 6 big Saturdays. Now we go well into November, December. There's a $2 million race in December called the Ingham. And all the way through there's $1 million races. So the carnivals are getting longer, the horses, there's more pressure on them. So we've got to keep them. It's like a super rugby season, the NPC, and then you've got your test rugby. So you've got to learn to get your best out of your players or your team, but at the same time not break them. So a farm's going to be instrumental to that. I'm looking forward to that challenge. Not a lot else will change.
Magic wand time. I know you think very deeply about racing. If I gave you the magic wand and you could change anything about racing, how would you use it?
Magic wand, big one? Big one. I think we've all got to understand, we paint the picture for racing, we're all responsible of it. So you've got to get rid of the negativity. And if you've got something bad to say, you say it behind closed doors. You don't get out there on your high horse. And we've all been guilty of it. We've got to paint the picture that racing's great. There's going to be social challenges, community challenges to get racing up, to keep it up to the standard of what people expect, and that's going to be less whip. It's going to be, making sure horses are traced from the day they're born to the day they pass away and where they're at. Not just we sell them, they get passed on to a girl that's going to look after them or a boy that rides them. But where do they go after that? We need to be responsible for that. So there's just, I think the picture, if I could wave the wand, would be to make sure that we are responsible, like the All Black jersey, make that number just as important as it was, or give it something extra to what it was before you put it on. And I think in racing we could do that. We get a voice, we get listened to. People want to be involved in racing, but we've got to get rid of the bad stories, and it's got to be only positive.
We thank Chris for the chance to get into his mind and see how the business of Chris Waller Racing works and his philosophies. I hope you enjoyed that. If he does head to the Melbourne Cup, well, he's going to have plenty of horses there one way or the other. Whether Via Sistina is one of them, we're not sure of. But what we do know is that after payments today, there are four New Zealand chances for the Cup. None of them are on this page. We don't have any of the favourites. Let's roll across to Sharp and Smart. Confirmed after his third at the Valley last Friday, Mick D, another New Zealander, will take the ride. Positivity, the team has paid up today. They are not certain to go, but it was like a $4,000 payment. It gives them the option to decide over the next week. She could also go to the matriarch on the last day. That's the other option for her. Marajan, change of plan, misses the Bendigo Cup on Wednesday. He goes straight to the Melbourne Cup. He's already qualified. He'll gallop on Tuesday morning, breakfast with the stars at Flemington. Declan Bates confirmed to ride Marajan. And Trust in You for the Cooksley Wallace team, was in Sydney, has headed down to Melbourne. Grant Cooksley telling the Guerin Report, if we get in, we will run. He's about 26th or 27th. If they get in, they will run, and Mark Duplessis will do the riding. The 1,000 Guineas is going to be potentially a great clash between Alabama Lass and Captured by Love. Ken Kelso told us this morning he will work Alabama Lass very lightly, of course, just to canter on Tuesday morning and make the final decision. But he is thinking far more yes than no to the 1,000 Guineas now. Knowing Ken, knowing the way he talks, I'm now convinced she will be on the plane to Riccarton. We are calling it Alabama Lass will be starting in the 1,000 Guineas at Riccarton in 2.5 weeks' time. Will Captured to Love be there to meet her, or will she go to the 2,000 Guineas a week earlier? Fascinating times coming up. Cup week 2 weeks away. The other Cup is next Tuesday. It's the Melbourne Cup. Huge coverage coming up here on Trackside. And we here at the Guerin Report are going to talk to one person who crosses over. Australia, New Zealand, Europe, has won a Melbourne Cup and lost a Melbourne Cup by a nose. Terry Henderson from OTI Thoroughbreds to join us on the Guerin Report to talk about the Melbourne Cup from a New Zealand angle after our Melbourne Cup preview show. Stick around on Trackside over the next couple of weeks. We are going Cup crazy. Thank you for watching tonight. I hope you have a great week ahead.